Radio.
News, opinion, and a little irreverence from both sides of the 49th parallel. This is Americanuck Radio with Mike Phillip.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the second hour of Americanuck Radio. We've got a special treat for you here. We've got Kevin J. Johnston once again and David the Menzoid Menzies. They've got a brand new show on Reality Radio 101 out of Toronto. There's a free plug for you guys. And it is called The Rebel Yell. She cried more.
Oh, you know you're Billy Idol, Mike.
Well, it happened. I mean, I was there, you know? She was crying more. So, joining us, we actually have Craig Owen Jenkins. He's a really great recording artist out of Alberta here. And he's got a really great CD called Heavy Load. And if you're into really great truck driving country music, this is the guy. Now, the reason we have him on with us in this little conversation is because we're going to be talking about SOCAN, the Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers of Canada. It's a non-for-profit organization that represents the Canadian performing rights of millions of Canadian and international music creators and publishers. That's what they say. That is their claim. So, Kevin has got it in for SOCAN. Kevin, let's start with you. What's the problem with SOCAN, and why did you go down this road?
All right. First off, let's do the obligatory butt kiss here. I am so happy that Western Canada has Americanuck Radio, because we've got the Rebel.media, we have CIJnews.com, we have this guy, FreedomReport.ca, and we have Americanuck Radio. That's all the real media that we have in this country. People, start your own shows and start telling the truth. We need more guys like Mike Phillip. We certainly do. Okay, here's the deal. A friend of mine owns a bar in downtown Toronto. Well, West Toronto. Keel and Bloor, for those who know the area. Now, I'm having a conversation with him in his own bar about Star Trek. Extremely important stuff.
Yeah.
And a tall guy, about 6'2" and really skinny, walks in and slams a business card down saying, you've got 6 speakers over here, you've got a jukebox over there, you have seating inside your restaurant for about 80 people, you can fit 60 on the deck. He seemed to know his stuff about the bar, and he just slams down this piece of paper saying that the bar owes $680 per year retroactive for the last 5 years the bar was open. And then he was addressing me because the dude behind the bar is black. I guess he assumed that a black guy can't own a bar. Whatever. And after a while, I sat there and said, okay, well, please tell me why I owe you this money. And he explained that SOCAN collects money on behalf of artists and composers countrywide, and that any place that has music playing within it that makes even a single penny a year has to pay a tariff to SOCAN, because he puts his fist down on top of the piece of paper, because we are a government agency.
So he was being a jerk about it.
Oh, he was being obnoxious. Now, my buddy who owns the bar is a Krav Maga expert and a former bodyguard and a former bouncer who chose to get away from working for other people and open his own place.
Not to be messed with.
He stands up with 30-inch arms. I mean, the arms are like my thighs. And his chest just bulges out. He just whispers in this guy's ear that if you give me your playlist, I promise never to play anything on your playlist in my bar. And if you won't do that, then get out. So the guy tries to explain once again that the playlist is too big for them to print out and hand over to everybody. But my friend knows the law like I do and says, well, you still have to disclose your entire list if you want me to cooperate with you. And the guy, he throws some legalese at us. I wrote it all down, none of which was made much sense to me, but I was going to do my research. And eventually my buddy gets fed up, throws him out of the bar and says, if you come back here, I'm going to arrest you for trespass. Beat it. Now, I followed this guy out, and I just kept barking at him, saying, hey, everybody, look at this, registered sex offender right here, just to get on his nerves, because this guy really irked me the wrong way. And if you know Bloor and Kiel, the next major subway station is all the way down at Dundas West. So he walked all those city blocks just to get away from me, and he was no longer the big tough guy. And you figure a guy might turn around and be a man and shove me or tell me to get lost or call the police. He did none of that. He just kept looking at the ground, walking away as I insulted him. And then I realized, you know what? We had only got to Star Trek 4, and there was, at the time, 10 movies to go through. So I went back to finish the conversation. Right? But I did my research into SOCAN. And what their big claim is that they are a government agency. They are not a government agency. They are a not-for-profit corporation, which anybody in Canada could register for $200. They also
but he came in claiming to be a government agency.
Yes, it's okay. A lie. He lied. He started the relationship off with a lie. So what I decided to do is question these people further. And they said that we have been granted government backing by the Copyright Board of Canada to charge tariffs to everybody who owns a business who may or may not be playing music inside of their businesses. So the Copyright Board of Canada, they're the ones that gave permission for this to happen. Now, I do my research into these people. I phone them. I talk to 5 members, the ones that would talk to me, and one of their lawyers. And here's what the Canada Copyright Board is. Are we all set for this? People, prepare to be blown away. They are what you call a quasi-judicial body. They have no authority to issue fines. They have no authority to arrest you, to take your property away. They have no authority to tell you that you cannot play music. They don't even have the authority to say that you cannot break someone else's copyright. They have no authority at all. What the term quasi-judicial body means is that they have either a sitting judge or a retired judge on their board of directors. These people sit around a big table, eat donuts that the taxpayers pay for, and come up with ideas that they want to suggest to any member of parliament who will pay attention to them to maybe turn into a motion, to maybe one day be considered to be a new copyright law. That's all they do, is they throw ideas around. They have no authority to have issued authority to SOCAN. So I'll repeat that. We got SOCAN and the other idiots, resound.ca. These people went to the Canada Copyright Board, who have no authority to get their authority to extort over $300 million a year out of Canadians, laying claim that they give almost all of it away to artists that are on their list, to which I'm sure some get money, but no one I know personally.
Well, they claim that 86 cents on the dollar gets paid out to artists.
Well, that's what they say. But,
okay.
I mean, where's all these millions of dollars going? First off, they brag. I mean, if I was extorting money from people by sending out threatening letters and filing lawsuits that are not legal to file, I wouldn't be bragging about how much money I was making. I would keep it hush-hush and quiet. I would pray that nobody like me was doing any research on what I'm doing. But they brag about this. And the letters that they send to people, they all show up with the SOCAN logo, which is black, white, and red, just like the Canada logo. So it looks like a government agency, and people just pay these fees. Now, I have a 90-minute conversation with one of the clowns that work there.
1 minute left.
I'm sorry. Oh, 1 minute left? Okay. Then I won't get into that. What I'll get into is this. SOCAN has no authority. The Copyright Board of Canada has no authority. The tariffs that they're telling you have to pay are not legal for them to charge. Charge SOCAN with either criminal harassment, fraud, extortion, or all three when they send those threatening letters to you. And on freedomreport.ca, a new service I'm going to be adding to it is to get representation that I will get SOCAN off your business's back. Booyah!
All right. All right. So we've got Kevin J. ranting about SOCAN, and we're going to get the other side of the argument from a registered member, Craig Owen Jenkins, right after this.
Syntec Global XFT is a breakthrough product trusted around the world for over 20 years. Syntec Global XFT will maximize engine life and fuel economy, maximize horsepower and performance, and minimize emissions. XFT packs an incredible amount of benefits into one small concentrated dose and comes with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. That's Syntec Global XFT. Put it to the test.
Head over to Americanuckradio.com now to get your extreme fuel treatment. That's Americanuckradio.com.
That sound you're hearing, everybody, is the song called Black Gold by Craig Owen Jenkins, and it's about a farmer in Alberta that has to go and work on the drilling rigs in the oil patch in order to keep his farm because our economy is so great here. So, and I identify heavily with that song because I worked on drilling rigs, service rigs. I spent my time in the patch. I'm a true Albertan, as well as an American. Now, Craig is here because he is a registered member of SOCAN. Say hi to everybody, Craig.
Hi, nice to see you, everybody, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, I contacted you after talking to Kevin because I realized that I didn't know a lot about SOCAN, and you know what? Most Canadians don't. No. And so you've had a different experience being on the other side of the coin with SOCAN not being the proprietor of a bar or some establishment that they're going to be billing. And why don't you get into your side of the equation here with SOCAN and what your experience has been?
Okay. Well, first off, I'll make a little disclaimer. I don't work for SOCAN. Never have. I paid. So basically, where I come from is probably just your generic run-of-the-mill Canadian songwriter, where I paid my $50 or $100. I don't remember even what it was. So it was so long ago to be a member. And from that point forward, they pay me royalties whenever they are due. And they are an advocacy group that they collect those royalties on my behalf. So I would kind of come at it from the point, when Kevin was sitting in the bar with his buddy. Now, if it hadn't have been a SOCAN guy, let's say it was a lawyer who worked for Molson Canadian, and he comes in there and he says, hey, you're selling Molson Canadian beer. And, yeah, we sure are. And this guy was able to say, yeah, well, I've got the paper trail to prove that somehow that beer that you're selling as Molson beer, Molson Canadian is not getting paid for that. Now, would you say, gee, that guy sure was an a-hole. He was sure threatening. Because I guarantee you that lawyer from Molson Canadian would be telling your bar owner, I'm going to get you in court and we're going to sue the heck out of you over this. And, so a lot of the argument, and I see the point of, your buddy's just a guy who owns a bar. He's a small business owner and he's just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
Well, for a guy like me, SOCAN is like, well, am I gonna drive to every bar in Canada and walk in and spy to see if they're playing Looking for Black Gold by Craig Owen Jenkins? And if I find a bar, am I going to go and I'm going to say, you know what, how many times do you play that song a year? And they go, well, X amount of times. I say, you owe me $13. And he's going to tell me, okay, go get a lawyer for $300 and sue me for my $13.
Is SOCAN going to come after me for playing that little bit of your song?
I hope so. What the hell am I paying them for? I expect it. And the thing of where you said, hey, that guy was really threatening and all that. Well, that's what I'm paying him for. I'm paying him to come in there and put the fear of Jesus in you. And yeah, so like you said, they don't have any authority. They can't arrest you or anything. My point is that the bar owner gets a bill from the city or whoever for his water every month. Well, the water company they don't have the authority to say, you haven't paid your water bill in 6 months, we're going to arrest you. We're going to fine you. Just like SOCAN, all they can do is say, I'm threatening to take away your water. We will cut off your service. And they might even do that. But what they can do, just like SOCAN, is that they can say, you know what? We're going to go and through the courts, and we're going to sue you to get you to pay us what you owe. And that's what SOCAN does. And like I said, if he was threatening and he was an a-hole, maybe it wasn't professional, but by that token, if he was to get me the money that technically, in the very eyes of the law, well, it's being stolen from me.
So there you have it, and that's Craig's take on the situation. And listen, bar owners are notorious. Some of them scumbags. Probably not your friend, Kevin. But
No,
I used to play in bands, and I've had bar owners shortchange us at the end of the night on what we agreed on, and their attitude was, "So sue me. Go ahead. What are you going to do?"
Exactly. And what I would say is that anybody that's played music in Canada, if you've done 10 gigs or more, you've been ripped off at least once.
Oh, yeah.
And the bar owner will just look at you and say, screw you.
Well,
and so if you think that, somebody that is going to look you right in the eye after they've watched you play and do your gig all night and never complained, but walks up to you and says, I'm only going to pay you half of what we agreed on. Says that right to your face. Do you think that a-hole is going to voluntarily track down Craig Owen Jenkins to give him his 45 or 50 cents every time he's played my song in his bar? Never. So, and some of these guys, some of the bar owners, they're pretty tough customers. Some of them might want to think they're tied into the mob, or who knows.
Well,
right?
Some of them are tied into the mob.
Some of them, Hell's Angels.
Yep.
They own clubs, but so. I guess where the guy was coming in at it, like acting like a heavy, and I've got the power of the court and the government behind me, is that, that's where he's coming from.
All right, we've got about 2 minutes left here. So, and the thing for me in this whole situation is how many authorities do we need that have the power to shut down businesses? I mean, I get what you're saying, Craig. You need to be paid for that song that you wrote, and it's only right. And see, here's the thing: it's a bad situation that came about by people acting badly in the first place. So, what do you think of Craig's response, Kevin?
First off, I don't disagree that he should be paid. And as I've mentioned to you before, I did a lot of comedy in the past, and I would say that maybe even as high as 15% of the time, bar owners would either not pay or shortchange me. And I even had people reverse their credit card transactions on me a week later and say nothing about it. So I've been there. I know what he's talking about. However, as you've indicated, how many more authoritative bodies do we need in the country? And the answer is we need none. And if you keep following freedomreport.ca, you're going to learn that almost nobody has any real authority at all, so long as you do not believe they do and you're willing to fight them.
We got to wrap it up, Kevin. I hear the music in this segment. And coming back on the other side, we want to talk about more government regulations over broadcasting with David Menzies and his experience with Sun TV and the Rebel. We'll be back on Americanuck Radio right after this. Stay tuned. Hey everybody. Welcome back. We are live. The call-in line is 855-660-4261 on Americanuck Radio. And if you head over to Americanuck Radio, you can see a banner ad where we advertise a product called XFT, and that stands for Extreme Fuel Treatment. Now, listen up. I gave a 10 milliliter, that's milliliter, very tiny amount, in a pouch to a guy I know to put in his truck, and he got an extra 150 kilometers on that tank of gas. Okay? You want to beat the carbon tax, or do you want to whine about it all day? Head over to Americanuckradio.com. We have got your answer with extremefueltreatment.ca. Extremefueltreatment.ca. Now, we are very honored to be joined by a member of the illustrious Rebel Media, Mr. Menzoid, David Menzies. How you doing, Dave?
Hey, great to be with you, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I did not just get beat up by Antifa, so I'm doing a little better than you. But are you all right?
Don't worry about me and Antifa. Ain't nothing shaking but the bacon with those cats involved.
No doubt. So listen, we were talking about government regulation and how it interferes in the arts, and Craig is coming at from the standpoint that SOCAN actually helped him out. But you were working with Sun TV, Sun Media, Brian Lilly, Ezra Levant. I was a big fan. Craig here was a big fan.
Huge fan. I'm still crying that they're not on the air.
Well, you can get over it because they're gone. We have the Rebel, and you guys are awesome. I'm a big fan of the Rebel. It is actually the best Canadian news outlet that we have, and you guys are growing like crazy, hey?
Oh, it is fantastic. I mean, first of all, Ezra is a genius in my book, Mike. I mean, out of the ashes of Sun News, on his kitchen table, he created what I believe to be the portal for the future of journalism, which is to say that we don't have a Taj Mahal broadcasting temple like the CBC Toronto headquarters down on Front Street.
Right.
We don't have some 100,000 watt transmission tower like a radio station would have. We're out in an industrial park, very lean and mean, and we produce content that is going to people's portable and mobile devices, and for when they want to watch it, right? So you don't have to be in front of a radio, you don't have to be in front of a TV. I think this is the way of the future, given what's happening to mainstream media right now.
Well, hey, let's talk about how the Rebel was born. So you guys were clicking along with Sun Media. You had a great lineup there. Give us a little bit of inside baseball on how this came about.
Yeah, well, Mike, what happened is that with Sun News, we to ensure our survival, we needed the mandatory carriage license, and we went to the CRTC to get that license because at the time, Sun News was losing about $15 million per year, and we weren't on the right platform to attract, the A-list advertisers that we needed. Now, here's the thing. I mean, whether we believe in free skies or not, whether we believe in government regulation or not, the fact of the matter is, in Canada, we have a government organization called the CRTC. And the
Canadian Radio Television Communications.
That's right.
Right.
And they're like the FCC, but worse.
Right.
Indeed, because the FCC can fine you, the CRTC can revoke your license and put you out of business.
They'll shut you down.
But at the end of the day, we were seeking a license, and I thought we had an excellent case because the ostensible policy reason for the CRTC is to promote Canadian content. That's what it's all about. So you look at Sun News. This was a Quebec-owned company whose headquarters was in Toronto for the Sun News Network, with bureaus right across Canada, employing, I think at the time, almost 200 Canadians, producing stories, Canadian stories, for a Canadian audience. I mean, Mike, it doesn't get more Canadian than that. I mean, you'd have to, get a Mountie in a wet T-shirt contest with maple syrup, I think, to get more Canadian. But the point of the matter is, we made that case. I thought it was a fantastic case, for Sun News to go to the CRTC to request this. And by the way, this was the kind of license that CBC News World and CTV News Channel received when they started off. And at the end of the day, the CRTC said no. They don't have to give a reason. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And again, in the question, in matter of fairness here, we were just asking for this mandatory carriage license. We weren't asking for what CBC gets, which is that $1.2 billion welfare check
to produce the most god awful crap you've ever seen.
Oh,
Road to Avonlea, come on.
Yeah.
I think if we read between the lines, obviously what happened here, I mean, I'll go back even prior to the first day of broadcasting of Sun News Network. You remember how its critics was calling it the Canadian version of Fox News North, I think.
Right.
They were using as if that was really a terrible slur. And there was an actual petition. I mean, we haven't even announced the staff yet. We haven't even had 1 minute of broadcasting. And with the intellectual elites, and the left-wingers, there was this petition even before we got on the air. And I think that speaks to what we're seeing right now in society, where the debate is being shut down. It's not a matter of you have a contrary opinion, I vehemently disagree with you, and here's my point of view. It's, you're of that political stripe, you cannot say this because it's blank, hate speech, it's offensive, et cetera, et cetera. So in that context, the knives were always out. And without being able to read the minds of the CRTC people, I just personally feel that our brand of politics, right of center, was just not their cup of tea. And that's the reason they turned a blind eye to, I think, a profound case, again, going by their own rationale for existence, Canadian content.
So would that be Canadian content unless you don't follow party line?
Yeah, that's a great point. I suppose we're at a point right now where Canadian content has to fall into a particular little box. I guess the kind of stuff that CBC produces and gets, like I said, this $1.2 billion welfare check. And I mean, I've always said if CBC was so integral to the Canadian identity, take away that money and have people, make donations and like a PBS model and
public television, yeah,
and but you always got to look for that silver lining, and I think the silver lining here was Ezra Levant taking it upon himself to create Rebel.media within days of the Sun News Network going out of business. And you're absolutely right, Mike. The numbers in terms of the viewership, in terms of the subscribers, in terms of the YouTube hits, it is growing every single month. And Ezra himself, he can tell you, not even 3 years old, and we have more of an audience than CBC.ca and Maclean's.ca, which I think is phenomenal. And I think it speaks to the fact that people in this country, and other countries too, because, if you look at what's in Europe, if you look what's in Australia, they are famished for right-of-center viewpoints, because the left-wing media in so many nations has just taken over the platform.
Well, what's really funny is out of one side of their mouth, this government tells everybody that if you're a nationalist or, you're Hitler, right? If you're a nationalist, nationalism is bad. Protectionism. Trump is Hitler because protectionism. But we've got to make the CRTC enforce 50% Canadian content on the hour. Otherwise, we'll lose our national culture. That is, by definition, protectionism and nationalism, and they get to pick winners and losers. But I'll tell you what, out of the ashes rises the rebel. And Americanuck Radio. We'll be back with Kevin J. Johnston, David Menzies, and Craig Owen Jenkins right after this.
Syntec Global XFT is a breakthrough product trusted around the world for over 20 years. Syntec Global XFT will maximize engine life and fuel economy, maximize horsepower and performance, and minimize emissions. XFT packs an incredible amount of benefits into one small concentrated dose and comes with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. That's Syntec Global XFT. Put it to the test.
Head over to Americanuckradio.com now to get your extreme fuel treatment. That's Americanuckradio.com.
We're back, everybody, with Kevin J. Johnston and David, the Menzoid Menzies. You guys should be calling yourself KJ and the Menzoid on KLGBT Radio, Ontario. I mean, that's
just the CRTC would give us a license?
Well, if you said KLGBT Radio, they would have to. Otherwise, they'd be a bunch of racists. Right?
Oh, that's a slam dunk.
No doubt. So you recently had a run-in with Antifa, and I'd like to play a little bit of sound from that because,
sure.
Okay, so here's the well-thought-out debate going on with David Menzies and an Antifa protest.
Hey, man, what brings you out to the counter-protest? Fake news! Fake news! I can't hear you. Fake news!
Okay, I had to shut that off. I can't keep doing that.
Look at all those multi-syllable words she used. Oh.
I know. It's amazing. Hey, they're good at what they do. You gotta admit. So they were like surrounding you and just screaming at you. That was what they were doing.
Yeah, Mike, it's too bad this isn't a visual medium because what happened, it was an anti-M103 protest at City Hall, and I spoke to those people who were all very eloquent and passionate and weren't using profanity. And in the interest of, speaking to the other side, I crossed the police barricade, which is needed to protect those people from these Antifa thugs. To speak to them. Now, I was immediately surrounded, and this wasn't the first time this has happened, but it was the most blatant time. I'd say there was about 50 of them, and they all had these, like, Radio Shack megahorns. Your audience just heard a clip of that. And they were, and many of them, and a couple of them were, no word of a lie, if you look at the video, like 2 centimeters away from my ears, right? Which I really think is a line being crossed in terms of assault. I mean, I couldn't hear myself think, right? And it was either just chanting, F us, or just creating so much noise and such a racket that it made any kind of discourse irrelevant. But what I find perversely ironic about this, Mike, is that the left, when you think about it, has become what they hate. They are employing the tactics of fascism. They are shutting down free speech and free expression, which is what they should have and what once upon a time they did champion. Now their theory is if there's a debate on any issue, you are forbidden from giving your side of the story, and if you try to go ahead, we're going to pull fire alarms, we're going to make noise, we're going to throw projectiles, we're going to get violent. It is an absolute disgrace that this is the mindset on the left today when it comes to having a debate on an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And their only tactic is to be obnoxious, and now they're, throwing poo. And I mean, that, you know what? My mom never had to teach me that you don't do that, right? I mean, and I'll tell you what, if you throw poo at me, I am not responsible for what I do to you, because at that point, I am going to come unglued. I'm serious. Like,
and so you should, man.
Right.
So you should. Unhinged,
exactly.
Unglued, on everything. And that's what a lot of these kids need. The big problem with these Antifa kids, most of them are 18 to 25, and they're following the guidelines set forth by either their high school teachers or their peers, or even college teachers and university teachers. So some of them actually think they're doing the right thing. But they also seem to think that there's absolutely no consequences to your actions of coming up to someone like yourself, Mike, who will flip out and defend themselves to the best of their capacity. And that's something that all these Antifa kids need, is a good thrashing, a good beating. I remember being a sarcastic, cynical idiot in grade 9, and some guy came by, he gave me 5 bitch slaps in the face, and all of a sudden, I realized, wait a second, I'm kind of in the next stage, not quite adult life, but this ain't grade 6 anymore, And that's what these kids need. They need a good punch in the face and a good knee to the gut. That's what's going to smarten these kids up. And Dave, God bless you for the patience you had. I saw the visual of those horns. I think one of them was less than 3 inches from your ear, just cranking. And all they're doing is saying the F word. Those kids deserve a good shot in the head.
Unfortunately, what you can't see is what the camera's not catching because it's such a mob. I'm getting kicked in the knees. One gal was scratching my hand, trying to wrest the microphone away from me, and you just can't see that. But the very interesting thing too, when it comes to Kevin was alluding to bitch slapping. I mean, the topic du jour of Antifa is shutting down anyone who they think is promoting Islamophobia. But they won't talk about Islamofascism. And the funny thing is, if you go to Islamist regimes, I would love to see them try to get away for 1 minute of one day what they're trying to do. Because we know in these places you don't have the freedoms that we take for granted here. And yet they will never speak out against Islamofascism. It's all about this make-believe Islamophobia running wild in the streets. And the tactics they employ are those of fascists, even though they're called Antifa. Well,
they should run over to Saudi Arabia and run for public office,
Well, we must look to the Saudis. They are a beacon of light. Mike, they've just been appointed to the Women's Rights Commission on the UN. And I think the Saudis have a lot to tell us about women's rights. Let's see, can't drive a car, you need a male guardian for everything. You do. You basically have to go out.
Dinner's not on the table. You're halfway in the ground, and you're going to be stoned to death. There's
got to wear a horse blanket in the desert.
Yeah. So and it brings to. I am still astonished by this unholy alliance of the far left and radical Islam, given that ostensibly they agree on nothing, right? That if you look at women's rights, gay rights, freedom of the press, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, all the things the left would and should promote. These are things that are alien in Islamist regimes, and yet these two are two happy little bedmates right now, still waiting for that honeymoon to end, because I think it's going to end very badly.
Well, that's just it. Ask anybody in Sweden how it's going,
Yep.
What's their rape rate up 600%?
How you enjoying that kind of cultural enrichment, Swede?
Yeah. Hey, sweetie. So, yeah. Hey, you brought up this situation earlier about the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal and this black landlord that's getting taken to the cleaners to the tune of $12,000. Get into that a little bit in the time we got left, Kevin.
All right. For in a nutshell, there was a Muslim couple renting a room in this man's house. They were being very obnoxious. Whatever they were doing, I wasn't there. But he wanted to rent the apartment to someone else who had class. And what they were telling him is that he had to give them a full 25 hours notice before they brought people in, because she had to have her hair covered. And they couldn't walk into his own house with shoes on because they prayed in the bedroom on the floor and so on. So, and also they called the police on him when he was shoveling snow, because apparently it was very scary. So what they do is they call the police. The police ignore the whole situation. They tell the Muslims to not do this stuff anymore.
Right.
And they weren't content to just leave the apartment. They filed a human rights complaint, and they went to the tribunal for this. Now, here's the sick part. The lawyer, last name is Pickle, the lawyer was the lawyer for this Muslim couple, but she was also the judge in the same case. Now, doesn't that just blow your freaking mind away? I'm going to repeat that. The lawyer for the Muslim couple who filed the human rights complaint was also the judge, and she is the one who ignored everything the landlord had to say and took everything the Muslims said at face value and awarded them $12,000. Now, sir, if you're listening, I'm going to help you get out of that $12,000. We're going to go straight to that Pickles house. I've got a private investigator looking into the entire human rights tribunal now. We're going to get all their home addresses, and we're going to start making phone calls to them there. We have to, this tribunal stuff, these people are sick. And we have to take the battle now to their front door. You know, here's the worst part of it all, also, is if you're the one that registers a complaint to the Human Rights Commission, all your legal fees are covered. The commission,
yeah, but the landlord's on the hook. Kevin, I hear the music. That means we've run out of show.
Oh,
Everybody,
no.
You've been listening to Kevin J. Johnston, Americanuck Radio, and the Rebels Dave Menzies, the unholy trinity. Head over to CraigOwenJenkins.com and get yourself some great road driving music. We'll be back, same place, same channel next week. Everybody, check out the work of these fine gentlemen, and everybody, thank you for joining me today. It's been a great show.
Thank you.
Awesome show there, Mike.
Talk to you boys later.
Americanuck Radio.